and welcome everyone to the second part of the lecture which we are doing. Now, I am Ashwin Joglekar, I am from Resonance PCCB division. What we are discussing was traders, kings and pilgrims and their contacts with the distant lands. Now, in the first part of the lecture, we had discussed about basically the Sangam literature and how Sangam literature provides us an insight into what was the life, social life, economic life, political life of people at those times, especially of the southern kingdoms. Apart from that, this also tells us how Indian kings had trade relations as well as colonies in different parts of Asia. Then we were looking at silk routes, how they played an important role. And now we will be looking at India's contact with the West. Alright. So now, India's contact with the West, that is Western world. In fact, India had trade relations like, I'll just go through the map once so that you will understand. Okay. So now, see, if we are taking, this is India, right? Now, this is your western part, this complete part is your western part and this is referred to as eastern part, right? So now, earlier we looked at India's contact with the eastern part and now we will be looking at India's contact with the western part of the world. Alright, so let us start again. So, in fact, India had trade relations with western world from time immemorial, okay, since long. The Indus Valley people had established commercial relations with Mesopotamia, now Iraq and Egypt. So, these were again ancient civilizations as well. Indus Valley articles like seals, beads have been found at many Mesopotamian and Egyptian sites. So, that again establishes the fact that these people had trade relations. In 5th and 6th centuries BC, India came in direct contact with Persia when its ruler Darius or Daral conquered many parts of India, including the northwest frontier provinces and certain parts of Sindh and Punjab. The Indian territories, according to the Greek writer Herodotus, again the father of history, became the 20th province or satrapy of the Persian king. These regions, northwest frontier province, was the 20th province of the Persian king. It is believed that the Indian territories remained under the Persian dominance for about a century and after that they became independent. As a result of this occupation, Indian goods began to sell in all parts of the Persian Empire. Thus, commercially, India stood to gain because of this Persian contact when it came in contact or it was occupied by the Persian ruler. Now, later on, with Alexander's invasion of India in 326 BC, India again came in close contact with the Greeks. When some of the Greeks stayed back and again carved out their own empires like the Indo-Bactrian and Indo-Parthian, this Indo-Greek contact became closer. Some of the rulers or some of the soldiers, they stayed back and again married the local women there and established their own empires or dynasties. It led to a rise in commercial relations between India and Greece and other European countries. Indians gained knowledge from the Greeks in the field of coinage, how to make coins, astronomy, architecture and as well as sculpture. So, it is always a mutual give and take relationship which happened, that they learned something from us and we also learned something from them. In the field of religion and philosophy, the Greeks learnt a lot from the Indians in return. When the Romans established their vast empire in the 1st century BC under Augustus Caesar, 27 BC to 14 AD and his successors, India's trade with the Roman Empire increased many times. There was again a great demand of Indian luxuries like pepper, the spices which had huge demand in Europe, pepper, spices, fine muslins, perfumes, pearls, precious stones, the beryl, the gem, ivory, tortoise shell, etc. had huge demands in Europe. In return, the Romans exported to India large number of gold and silver coins, silver ornaments, wine, various types of pottery, large glass jars, bowls, bronze stands, bronze pots, bronze statues, steel yards, etc. Lead in the shape of coil strips seems to have also been imported from Rome. So, all this flowed from Rome to India and from India to Rome flowed all these मटीरियल्स। तो ये सब तो इंडिया से रोम की तरफ जा रहे थे, दैट इज यहां से वहां बेचे जा रहे थे और वहां से इन रिटर्न ये सारी चीजें इंडिया में आ रही थी। द सातवाहना रूलर्स also used this lead for making their coins. Now Pliny, a Roman writer who wrote an account in about 77 AD, complains that every year the Roman Empire was deprived of 55 lakh sesterces or £500,000 as a result of this trade. So they were losing £500,000 again calculated in of that time with this trade. The discovery of numerous finds of Roman coins at various sites in Peninsula, that is in the Indian region, leaves no doubt that India was a gainer in trade with the Roman Empire. So that is India was having a favorable balance of trade here, and India was definitely exporting more and importing less. Now the Roman traders also started to gain by this trade. It is said that Indian goods fetched 100 times more price in Roman markets than in India. That is why some Roman traders began to reside in many parts of India like Mizues, Becare, Colchoi and Arikamedu, Sopare, Broch, etc. The trade with the Roman continued up to the 7th century AD when the Arab took charge of it. That is, now Arabs took over it. Most of the land and sea routes now were controlled by the Arabs, and then the Arabs became a link between India and Europe. Now, the trade is happening through Arabs. The Arabs learned a lot from the Indians in the field of science, mathematics, technology and medicine, and passed that knowledge on to Europeans further. It was from the Indians that the Arabs acquired the knowledge of numerals, the decimal system and the zero, and passed it on to the Europeans. The Arabs call their numerals as Hindse, which clearly shows the in-depthness to Hind or India. Now, religious practices. At this time, the worship of certain deities like Shiva and Vishnu became popular or common. Some goddesses such as Durga, Parvati, Mahadevi and Gauri were also worshipped. Unlike the gods of Vedic age, these new gods were not tied to natural phenomena. So, most of the earlier Vedic age gods were related to the natural phenomena like the Agni, Surya, Vayu. Anyone irrespective of caste, creed or sex could worship them through bhakti. An individual's devotion to a chosen deity, whoever he or she feels as god or goddess. Keeping fast and vows, traveling to places of pilgrimage and worshipping a deity with a pure heart were the essential form of this bhakti. No elaborate sacrifices were required or performed. Okay. Only an individual worship of a god or a goddesses was required. Most people preferred to worship this form of religion as it had a wider appeal. Alright. Now, this brings us to the keywords part of the chapter, that is Yavadipa is known as Java. Executive carvings were extraordinarily beautiful, designs cut in stone. Siam is Thailand. Indochina is the region, territories covered by modern Vietnam, Cambodia and Laos. Satrapi, a province which was under the Persian ruler Darius or Daral. Indo-Bactrians are the successors of Alexander, who established themselves in Bactria or Balkh region and later on conquered many parts of Afghanistan, Punjab and Sindh. Indo-Parthians, again successors of Alexander, who established themselves as Parthia, Persia, and after defeating the Indo-Bactrians conquered many territories of India lying between the Jhelum river and the Indus river. Byzantine Empire, East Roman Empire, which flourished from 330 to 1453 AD. Moving further let's recall part of it. Let's recall the chapter quickly. Okay. So, first of all is growth of trade. Craftsmen began to gather in towns. Now, why craftsmen were beginning to gather in towns? Because towns provided them, many of the people were flocking into towns, and now here they could sell their products as well. So, traders brought the materials from the villages and sold them to the craftsmen in towns. Flourishing trade between Roman Empire and South Africa, revealed by the abundant gold coins found, that is trade between many African and Southeast countries, Asian countries were also taking place, and again India was at the center of this trade which was happening. Development of new trade routes by sea, growth of towns along the coast, shipbuilding became an important industry of that time. Silk route again was controlled by Kushanas. Then the Sangam age roughly spans over the period 3rd century to 4th century, and during this age South India was ruled by dynasties like Cheras, Cholas and Pandyas. Rulers of foreign origin which came to India, that is Central Asian tribes, invaded India from northwest region through the Khyber and the Bolan passes, occupied parts of Punjab, Sindh, Rajasthan and present day Pakistan and Afghanistan, and established their kingdoms there. Followers of Buddhism again spread their messages through these routes. Bactrians under Demetrius occupied territories. In the 2nd century BC, Menander was a famous Bactrian ruler. The Sakas, a tribe from Central Asia, also ruled over Afghanistan, Punjab, Mathura, Deccan and parts of western India. The Parthians, who belonged to Central Asia, occupied a large portion of northwest India by defeating the Sakas, and Gondophares was a famous Parthian ruler. The nomadic tribes of China, the Kushanas, defeated Sakas and captured Bactria, and under the Kushanas, Kanishka was the most powerful king. So now this brings us to the end of this chapter. So basically the chapter Traders, Kings and Pilgrims and Contact with Distant Lands tells us a story about how different people played an important role in establishing contacts, that is how trade helped in establishing contacts with different parts of the world of India. Alright. So thanks for watching, and this is the end of the chapter.